Hello and welcome. I am Ray Paprocki, publisher of Dispatch Magazines, which includes Columbus CEO. This is the sixth installment of our quarterly webinar, Diverse Leaders in Law. It wouldn't happen without the support of our sponsors, Barnes & Thornburg and Frost Brown Todd. Many thanks to them. Today's forum is Big Ideas to Help Women Reach Parity. Before we begin our panel discussion, Noelle Shepard of Frost Brown Todd will share a few thoughts. Noelle?
Thanks, Ray. Frost Brown Todd and Barnes & Thornburg have been sponsoring this program. This is the second year. So what I typically do at the beginning, since most of you already know about us, is give you a few ideas of things our organization has done that's relevant to the topic today. So a few of the things that we've done in the past year or so is implement new training program, especially leadership programs. So we have a mini MBA program. Sorry, if you haven't muted, please do. I'm getting some feedback, so thank you. We have a mini MBA program that we offer to young associates, first years, second years, third years, helps them understand the business of law and then understands their client's business as well. As associates get more experience, we then offer them marketing training and leadership programs. We do in-house and outside leadership programs, including Leadership Columbus and programs like that help young folks obtain leadership skills to then become leaders within our firm. So if you have ideas that you'd like to share, please share them in the chat. And we're happy to sponsor today's program. Back to you, Ray.
Great, thanks, Noelle. Now for our panel, I'm really excited. We've got a strong group here. Leading the discussion today is Katy Smith. She's the editor of Columbus CEO and also business editor for the Columbus Dispatch. Katy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be joined today by our panelists, Higgins Marx, the managing partner at Carlile Patchen Murphy, Katrina Thompson, partner at Barnes & Thornburg, and Ashley Oliker, a member at Frost Brown Todd. We decided to do this topic today because data that comes out about women in law is just startling. We have a survey from the American Bar Association that less than 25% of firm partners are women. And for women who do reach partner, the pay gap is widening. According to Major Lindsey Africa in 2010, women partners at larger firms earned an average of 24% less than their male counterparts. By 2018, that was actually 35%. So we just wanted to get some people together and continue to talk about what are some ideas that we could be doing to change this. This is something that law firms and the legal industry and American corporate world in general have been trying to address for decades. And for some reason, the numbers just aren't moving that fast, not for some reason, for many reasons. So I wanted to bring together not just our panelists, but also audience members and asking, what are our ideas? What can we do? So we'll start with talking about the big thing, childcare, right? It's still a societal norm that women are the primary caregivers for small children. Family leave is an issue in America, lack thereof. And there's this idea of what if we could get more men to take family leave? Workplace policies are evolving. It's available to more men now, which is wonderful, but there's still a hesitation we're hearing for men to actually take family leave or to take as much as women do. And during our pre-call on this, Ashley Oliker had some really interesting things to say about it. So I'll throw it to you, Ashley.
Well, thank you so much, Katy. And I agree. The statistics are alarming, and it's bad. And there are a lot of different pieces to this puzzle of how we can work together to move the needle to hopefully one day achieve parity in the law. But undoubtedly, a big piece of that puzzle relates to childcare responsibilities. And It's not everything. There's a lot of different pieces involved, but it is one that should be mentioned and discussed. And while a lot of law firms and employers, they have adopted paternity leave policies, there's still some hesitation to take advantage of those policies by men. And if there isn't the hesitation and men do take advantage of those policies, is there stigma associated relating to it? And are they taking full advantage of those policies? And that's something that culture matters. As decision makers, as people who are leaders within the legal organization, within the legal industry, this is something that you can encourage a culture of inclusion and a culture of encouragement, because that helps to kind of level the playing field a little bit more. Ultimately, by and large, those responsibilities fall to the women. By and large, those are the women are the default parent. The women are the ones that are expected to do all of this. And there are a lot of super women that can, and there's a lot because we're strong. That's what we do. But we can't necessarily have that expectation to be doing everything that we need to be doing at the home, taking care of ourselves, recovering, doing it all, and then just act like it didn't happen, return to the law, return to your job, and act like that part of your life no longer exists. We need to encourage a culture that normalizes family care responsibilities, encourages families and supports families, not just for men, not just for women, but also for men, to level the playing field, support families, and support ultimately leading to a culture of support for all and inclusion and equity for all.
And I will say at Barnes and Thornburg, we do have the same maternity leave. And I do think guys take advantage of that. And I think that helps in terms of even just people's own personal biases. When you see, they always use the example too, if you see somebody leave the office at 3 o'clock, if it's a female, somebody's thinking like, oh, they must have to pick up their kids from school or something. And if it's a guy, people are thinking like, oh, he must be running off to a meeting. And so I think the more that you can show how society is now, most families do have 2 working parents and things. Everybody's trying to juggle it all. It should be shared responsibilities, and help kind of shift also people's internal dialogue when it comes to leave.
And I think leave is important, but it goes beyond leave, right? You need to encourage workplace flexibility. And that's flexibility for all employees. If folks want to attend a sporting event or volunteer at the school, it should be supported that they can take a break, right, from the workday and go do those things and re-engage when the activity is over. I think COVID, right, has taught us all a lot about workplace flexibility and remote work, and that teams can still function, even from home or really anywhere. So I think that's helping, and we're seeing the shift, right, in culture and attitude a little bit around remote work. Clients pay for accessibility. They want you to get back to them, but my experience is that clients don't care where I'm getting back to them from. They just want me to be available when they need me. And when we all appreciate that, it gives everyone, right, the opportunity to be viewed evenly and equally.
Because this is the unspoken thing here that, success is, the characteristics of success include constantly working and having, having a lack of separation or boundaries between home life and work life, even for people who may not have children, but have other engagements, other family members to take care of. What kind of conversations can people be having to move the needle on that? Obviously, COVID's helped a lot, right?
It has helped a lot. I think individually, you have to set your own boundaries, right? I could be on my phone 24/7 if I let myself, right? But, our kids are important. Putting them to bed is important. So I take pauses, right, during my day to do those things. I want to drop my kids at school, right? I don't take client appointments until after I drop my kids at school. I've never had a client bat an eye at that, right? They're totally supportive of the fact that I have duties outside of the office. And, in fact, I know they can relate to it, right? And again, I think it's as long as you're providing the level of service that you've promised and that the client expects, the rest of it will come along with it. But definitely have to set your own boundaries, right? Or you'll literally be on your device, right? Responding to every message that comes through all day long.
And
so there's
Jane,
on
you
time
say
and
that-
there's off time, right?
And you
And
say
we can
this
learn
as a
from each other
managing
how to do
partner.
that.
You've reached the top of your firm. Talk to us about the differences between, you work in a smaller firm, you set your own hours, you have somewhat, from my understanding, a more entrepreneurial culture in a smaller firm. Talk to us about how that's different.
So I can talk to my own experience, right? I've been doing this for 21 years. I've only ever been an attorney at Carlile Patchen Murphy. So I don't really have a comparison, but I can speak to my own experience and share that with you. But, I've always worked in an environment that feels like family to me. I don't believe I've ever been treated differently than anybody else here. And I have wonderful role models. By the time I got to Carlile, we had already had one female managing partner. And, during my time here, another, and then me. So I always had women at the table, but I also had male colleagues who took me under their wing and helped, right, to train and develop me. And that was important to them, to help me progress in the way that I desired to progress. So it's always been a loving and supportive environment here. And of course that made me want to stay, right? I knew I had a future here. I knew I was treated the same as everybody else. I knew my compensation was the same as everybody else. And I knew my opportunities were going to be the same and have been the same as everybody else. So for me, it's been a wonderful fit. And I think, maybe a model for how it could work elsewhere.
Katy, if I can jump in, I think Jane raised a really interesting point, and it's refreshing to see if you look through the screens here in the audience today, that this isn't a women's issue. It's a broader issue between all genders, all people. This is something that we can't just bang the drum as women over and over again saying, we're being untreated fairly. We want this, we want X, Y, and Z. You need to have the buy-in of the men. You need the men at the table. You need male sponsors. You need male role models. You need the inclusion of men to really move the needle further. There's only so much that we can do. It sounds like we're inside an echo chamber, a sound chamber. We're just talking to ourselves. And this conversation has been going on for ever since I was a lawyer. And I know it probably was going on decades before that as well. And it's something that continues. And the more that you can bring people into the conversation and get as much buy-in from as many people as possible, men and women, that's when change really starts to take place. And I'm happy that Jane pointed that out, of the male role models, and that she's had sponsors along the way. And it's an important piece. And it's wonderful to see so many on the screen here today, because that's how things happen and that's how change happens.
Let's delve into that sponsor idea. I wonder if you panelists or others want to offer any outstanding stories of, examples of sponsorship programs that really work, or is this more of an informal thing that just happens? You have something in common with people. Someone who's a senior attorney sees a potential in you and they take an interest in helping develop your career. How can what are some programs that we know of that work? Because sometimes people are shy, right? They don't want to be like, hey, I think you're great. Let me help you.
I think it's all of that, Katy, right? I think the organization itself has to be committed to providing new hires with a mentorship program, a structured program. But I also think along the way, we develop our own relationships and seek out our own mentors and, participate in training programs that assist. So I don't know that it's any one thing. I think for me, I can speak again to my own experience. It's been a combination of things. We had a formal mentor program. I ended up developing a relationship with a partner here who, you know, really did see me through and was my 20-year mentor, right? And still would be if he were still here. It just so happens he passed. You know, but then also outside of the organization, right? I've participated in leadership training, you know, through the CBA, the dining circle that the women lawyers group had, and you know, have on my own, I think, developed some relationships as well with folks that I consider part of my support system. So I think it's multi-pronged.
And I would agree with that too. I think it's important to have firm-led formal mentorship programs and leadership trainings, kind of like the same things Noelle was talking about at the start here. You know, you see from different people who are great rainmakers, and you can take pieces of that work with your own personality and make it work for you. But having kind of access to the wisdom and information of people before is great. But I'm also a firm believer in kind of collecting mentors wherever you can. I think it's important to have kind of somebody in your practice group, in your firm, who can really help substantively and know the ins and outs of your clients and can help with your path forward. Somebody outside of your practice group, but still in the firm, who can maybe help shed some light if there's some particulars that maybe you'd be blind to if you were just in your practice group. And then somebody externally from the firm to kind of be a sound machine of something that you're not worried about anything politically coming back and biting you in the rear, that you can really sort of delve into some deeper issues with as well.
And I would agree with that, because in my experience, I haven't found there to be one person that I look to true advice for every possible issue that could come up. There are people that I respect for X, there are people I respect for Y, and there's people that I respect for Z. And then you can kind of take all of those little pieces and make it work for you and gel for you, because ultimately every individual is different. Everybody is looking for different experiences, and there's not really one set path, one right thing to do, one right way to do things to achieve your ultimate goal. So you kind of need to take a little bit of pieces from the pie from different places to get it all together and see what works best for you.
And I think, Katy, even if you are shy, right, or just maybe a little more timid because you're new, right, to the organization or new to the practice, people want to be asked to help. I've never picked up the phone and called somebody and said, hey, will you help me? Or do you have a few minutes to talk about this issue, and had them tell me no, right? So, you know, yes, you have to take that first step, but it shouldn't be scary. People want to help other people. We have a wonderful local bar. Take advantage of it.
And if
It's
they do
flattering
say
to be
no,
asked,
that's not the
too.
person you wanted to help you in the first place.
Although this does bring up one of the other challenges that we sort of talked about too, and I know we kind of briefly touched on this when talking about boundaries, but it is an economic reality of the law that your pay is somewhat tied to how much you are working. The billable hour is a reality for a lot of firms. I think, you know, one of the things that we see and maybe can help in some ways are some alternative fee structures, or people getting creative with that, because the typical billable hour doesn't really value efficiency. You get paid for how much you're working on things. And so then when we're talking about programs like mentoring programs, like leadership programs, involvement in the community, I think those are all very valuable to our profession as a whole, but those don't ultimately count towards the billable hour, which equates to how much pay somebody is going to receive. And there are a lot of great men who take on a lot of those roles, but I think in a lot of firms, females take on a large amount of training, mentoring, and some of that non-billable work that is important to how firms run. So when we're talking about kind of how many hours people are devoting to the firm, it's not always captured in the amount of pay being received.
We had a recent conversation about this, and something that I think my firm does very well. I mean, is it perfect? No, nothing is, but it's something that I think is definitely a huge step in the right direction is recognizing the value placed on those items that Katrina just listed. Those are very important items that help to move the organization forward, to keep it continuing to survive and thrive and make a name in the community, bring in clients. It's not just all about the billable hours. What we call that is also investment hours, that you're investing in yourself to be a better lawyer, and you're investing in the organization, and you're investing in the community in a better way too. And those are things that we value. Do they necessarily have a monetary value placed on them that can be figured out and deciphered? Not necessarily, but it's something that we're expected to do. And it's something that a lot of value is placed on, and it's a part of your total working attorney hours. And I appreciate that, because for me, that's one of my biggest parts that I enjoy about being a lawyer, is being involved in the community and having conversations with clients and trying to bring in new clients and trying to mentor the next generation of attorneys coming through. That's actually some of what I get the most reward from in my practice, is probably doing some of that stuff. And it's nice to see that it's not going unnoticed, that it's not just going into some random entry of you're working and it's a time dump. It's something that we're expected to do, and we're expected to do a lot of it. And they appreciate it, and I appreciate my organization for putting value on that.
I think it's how you quantify those activities.
Mm-hmm.
Our compensation here is based on both hours billed and client, dollars originated. All of those activities that you referenced eventually lead to new client relationships. So while you're not getting an immediate return on your investment, engaging in those activities will ultimately help you build your practice. And once you have a practice, not only is that good for your organization, it's good for you. That's what makes you portable if you need to move firms. It opens up more opportunities. So you got to take the long view on those things too. And that's hard as a young associate, right? I remember, not seeing immediate results come from engagement in those activities, right? It takes years sometimes before you see work come from building those relationships, but it will come. And as long as your organization is willing to encourage that activity and have some patience with you, it pays off for everybody in the long run.
Although I'm also curious too, because what the other panelists think, I feel like when it comes to bringing in clients, that anecdotally, I know of a lot of females who will share credit or give pieces of billing credit to others. And obviously that also has an impact depending on how your revenue as a partner is generated. Curious what others have seen there as well.
I'm laughing because I know I personally overshare. That's just who I am as a person. That's just what I do. I'm probably incredibly overly generous, but at the same, and maybe that's hurting me currently, but I also believe in being a good person and being a team player and karma. And so maybe while I have gotten dinged in the past, and maybe I didn't receive the credit that I should have gotten here and there, I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing going forward and setting a right example and setting an example of teamwork that not only women can join in on, but that men, maybe when I bring them into the fold, when I bring in a new client and give them some of that credit too, maybe then they start paying it forward with others as well. But I laugh though, because yes, absolutely. I definitely have done that, and I'm not going to stop doing it anytime soon, and hopefully others follow that lead of that I've seen others do as well.
And I think that's important for the organization to emphasize and encourage, right? We have, I don't want to say a set of rules surrounding that, but we certainly have some guidelines in place for how and when and what we call an origination sharing is appropriate, right? And even if it is a client that I introduced to the firm, and we're very careful not to say my client, right? It's the firm's client, right? That's an important conversation shift all by itself. But when there is a client, right, of the firm that I introduced, If we're doing new work and that new work is to be done by somebody with expertise that I don't have, absolutely, they should receive credit for that engagement. So yes, we should voluntarily be doing it, but also institutionally and organizationally, we should have a system for encouraging that.
No, I think guidelines there would be really important and help sort of level expectations and help make sure that people are doing kind of the same thing across the board. I think kind of similarly, that's where transparency and pay and bonuses and promotions is really important too. Because again, not to stereotype, but knowing a lot of females, we tend to wait until we know we've met every criteria before we raise our hand, before we push for the value that we think we should get from an organization. And so being really clear and transparent, I think helps females raise their hand when the time is right, versus kind of waiting for somebody to say, hey, we think you should have a raise. Here's your bonus. You should be up for a promotion.
I agree with that. And we should all care about it. Client retention and client transition is important for every law firm. And no one client, right, should run that relationship. We want our clients to meet everybody they need to meet. And our people to be rewarded for providing service that brings them back. So, I also think it might be short-sighted for an organization to allow people to hog a relationship, so to speak. And I know there's economic incentive to do it. Okay, let's acknowledge that out loud. Okay,
Right.
There is economic incentive, right, for an attorney with a large relationship to do that. But is that good for everybody at the end of the day? I'd argue no.
And I like what you're saying, Jane, and something that we've moved towards at FBT is really hammering the necessity of teamwork. And we have set up industry teams to try to say, like, okay, here's the client. Who can we introduce them to? How many different people can we put together on a team to service this client? Because it's one thing if you're getting work one-offs here and there, but if you're able to really bring a team environment and team approach to a client and say, we could be full service for you on all of these different matters that you encounter, then that's when you really get a client to really stay. That's when you get them there. And that an approach of me is very short-sighted, a teamwork approach, and that comes with culture, and it comes from the leadership top down, setting the tone that teamwork is necessary, and put aside the short-sightedness of having a client for yourself. Think about the ultimate goal, and that's to generate revenue. That's to service your clients. And the more you can do it with more people, the more lasting that relationship's going to be.
What are the challenges in doing that? I mean, is the attorney-client relationship somewhat like the doctor-patient relationship? If I'm sick, do I want to show up at my doctor's office and have the other guy take my temperature? I mean, I guess if I'm sick, then yes, I want someone to take my temperature. But how do you translate that to the legal world?
But to Jane's point, right, you're definitely going to
team
want
approach,
the
team
cardiac
care.
surgeon to do your heart surgery versus the anesthesiologist. So that's where like the expertise really does matter for different things.
And there's still a relationship manager, right? There's still going to be an attorney who's the go-to for that client. There's an attorney who's that client's first call, and that's okay, right? It's just we all, the client and we as lawyers, need to be open to making additional introductions when necessary. So it's delicate, but manageable, and it's communication, right? The key to that is communication, right? Thanks for calling me, right? I want you to talk to my colleague who's our expert in this area, and let's get him on the phone, right? Or her. But no, they're not going to. Usually, it does happen occasionally, right? Sometimes somebody goes to our website and calls an attorney that has the knowledge that they're seeking, right? Just because they're comfortable with us, right? It does happen, but not usually. You're going to call the person you know, right? And that's who you trust. That's your trusted advisor, right? That's okay. And then because of that trust relationship, the right introduction will be made. The right team will be assembled.
So
Then
walk
it's
me
all in the
through-
handoff, right? I'm here for you if you need me, right? I'll stay involved. I'll be updated periodically along the way. It's all in the handoff. And you got to trust your colleagues.
So walk us through connecting this idea of a team of professionals taking care of a client. How does that benefit advancing women in law? And then also, how does it help the firm specifically?
To jump in, I think women typically operate in teams. I think that we're kind of prone to, personality wise, at least for me, I'm someone that wants to include others. I'm someone that just operates well on a team, and I like to do that. I like to bring people in and into the fold and help them out. And if you're having a culture of teamwork, that benefits women ultimately, because that's what we're doing, but we weren't getting necessarily the credit for, or the others that don't operate in that same realm and mentality were maybe being lifted up further because they're keeping all the credit, they're getting all the responsibility, and they're moving themselves up without thinking of the others. So I think that that's how it helps to achieve more of that balance. And again, it's better for the firm to be operating as a team. It's better for the firm because you're putting as many people in front of that client to make sure that you're the go-to for IP work, you're the go-to for trademark, you're the go-to for business transactions, you're the go-to for litigation, because you've got all of these trusted colleagues of yours helping out and working together to make sure that that client is being fully serviced as much as you possibly can.
Hands-on learning works. If you want to bring somebody along and you want to bring them along as quickly as possible, there's no better way to do it than hands-on learning, right? My best training experiences were sitting in on a client meeting and listening to the questions that the clients asked and hearing the answers, right, that my colleagues gave, and kind of understanding how that dynamic truly works. I mean, there's one thing to know the law, and there's another thing to understand how to convey that law in the form of advice to a client. And so that collaborative exercise will get a new attorney there faster, in my experience. And the client is getting the level of service they need, right? Not every project, not every task, not every assignment is a partner level assignment. You know, sometimes my clients need a deed prepared. My paralegal should do that work, right? But there's no reason that the client and the paralegal shouldn't talk to each other. You know, again, communication.
And I think having good teams too is making sure that everybody at the firm has opportunities to quality legal work as well. I think, you know, kind of forward thinking, some firms are working on kind of tracking mechanisms too. So it's not just enough to say we have this many females and they're working this many hours, but are they working on projects for the biggest clients at the firm? Are they doing the work that their picture was used to bring the RFP to your firm, and kind of tracking those metrics and making sure that females are really getting the same opportunities as their male counterparts.
Yes.
And I would think with the teamwork approach, if you know, if you're not using that and it's very much based on a relationship with just one attorney, what happens when that attorney doesn't like you anymore and they leave? They take the client with them. What happens if they die? The client might leave. So if it's a team approach, maybe that relationship is with their primary attorney, but also with the firm.
Most definitely. There's a succession planning element to it as well, right? Again, it's good for the whole team.
And so would Katrina and Ashley, would you be able to offer any of your personal experiences and coming up as attorneys, and how, you know, you've probably seen other women who you went to law school with, maybe, who entered the profession and left. What were some reasons you've heard that they left, and why haven't you left? What kept you here? And how are you doing?
You want to go, Katrina?
Sure.
We could talk all day about this. We typically do.
And I won't lie. I mean, there's some seasons of your life where it's a daily struggle, right? That commute in, you're kind of doing your mental games of, oh my gosh, can I keep doing this? And this is where it's important to have mentors and champions to remind you that every season of your life, it feels long when you're in it, but in retrospect, when you look at your whole career, those times are really short. And to not make some kind of career altering decisions based on what is ultimately kind of a blip in your career. I'd say for me, one of the interesting things I've sort of kind of noted over time is, for whatever reason, I feel like a lot of my female friends, when they are looking to make a big change in their career, whether that's to go reduce schedule or look for flexibility that works for them, often it seems like they feel more comfortable doing that while switching jobs, as opposed to kind of having a conversation with their employer to work out something that works for them. And I just find that interesting, because I don't think that's necessarily as telling as it may seem from the outside, that the firm wasn't willing to give them X, Y, and Z. I just think they seem to like starting kind of a clean slate with certain expectations and knowing that their compensation was based on this, rather than kind of juggling that with an employer that had started off with different expectations. So I just find that piece a little bit interesting, because I think we need to be able to advocate for ourselves. And I think a lot of employers are willing to, again, look at your long career and realize, hey, if for this short period of time, having somebody go part-time or having them work from home or do different things will keep this great employee here, a lot of firms will kind of be willing to talk through some options.
And to answer your question from my personal perspective, absolutely, yes. I've seen so many women that I started the legal profession with leave, and they left the law. They go in-house, and it's because in-house jobs have become incredibly attractive, and they don't see necessarily within their legal organization a path forward with the life choices or where their priorities are at that point in time. And they maybe don't see those role models at the top of their organizations either, who have gone through similar life situations and have come out and made it work and been able to be successful and thrive within that group. And again, in-house has become incredibly attractive, and there's a reason for it. I mean, they understand that it's easier to have an in-house legal staff. It's cheaper than having outside counsel. So they've made those jobs, those salaries are going through the roof right now. And they're promising the expectations of more flexibility, work-life balance, and all of those things. But to Katrina's point, that's not always necessarily, the grass is not always greener. I think that what's important, if you're looking to retain women and you're looking to retain talent within your law firm, is not just to have those flexible policies. I think it's important to really encourage, again, back to like our conversation about the paternity leave, is encourage folks and have those people who have chosen that path still continue on a path of leadership and a path of advancement and a path of moving forward along, because it's a short-term investment that maybe they're not always going to be on that flexible schedule. Maybe they don't always need to be working remotely. Maybe they don't always need to be reducing their hours, but it's a short-term investment to say, we want to retain you because we see your value. We see the long-term goal is having you here. And again, that goes back to the culture. It goes back to making sure that you're supporting those folks. I mean, I know of a lot of firms that have these flexible policies, but I've also anecdotally, like Katrina, have heard a lot of conversations of, oh, if you go on a reduced schedule at X, Y, and Z firm, that's considered the kiss of death for your career. There's no path forward. Yes, maybe you won't get fired, because I don't think you're allowed to do that legally, but will you be moving forward and will you be advancing, or are you just going to be stagnant while you continue to be here? And it's important that you continue to support those people. They're not stagnant. They're still good, valuable resources that you want to retain and you want them to excel. And something to share with the group, I've been on a reduced schedule since my first was born, and I've been very, very thankful, and I have an incredible amount of loyalty to FPT for sticking by me through it, through both of my children being born, and navigating the complexities that go along with that, and continuing to promote me and advance me through partner ranks, and continuing to give me leadership opportunities as well. And I think that speaks volumes of the firm, is not just having those policies, but making sure that you put your, not just paying lip service and saying, look at all these great policies we have. Everyone can come up with policies. We're lawyers, we can write them all day, but it's making sure that you're really making the culture for betterment for all and support for them.
And I would say for me too, like personally, one of the things kind of keeps striving forward and keeps me in the legal profession is really wanting to be sort of the example or mentor to the next generation of lawyers. I mean, you went through some really harrowing statistics sort of at the beginning from the ABA and others, but I also look Latinos in the law. So Hispanic females have some of the worst statistics. If we look at equal pay day, which if anyone's not familiar is like the day in the year. So for like 2021, I think it was like March 24th was women's equal pay day. So for how long into 2021 they had to work in order to earn what a white male average salary was for 2020. For Latino women, that was October 21st. So the pay gap is even wider for sort of that economics. My dad is from Brazil, so I tend to focus on Latina, Hispanic issues there. And so wanting to show females it's possible to move up through the ranks is a really important thing. And on those hard days where childcare is falling through, client demands are at their extreme, having an ultimate goal like that is something to help you push through some of the hardest days.
And, you know, retention is certainly an issue. I would say not just for female associates, but for associates in general, right? Private practice is hard. You know, we all need to acknowledge that. And I think people get into private practice and realize it's not what they thought it was going to be, or it's not their passion, or it's not what they want to do. So making sure, right, that your organization has a culture, right, that fosters a sense of belonging, right, and helps people through, right, some of those feelings of did I make the right choice? Am I doing the thing that I was meant to do? You know, if you had asked me, you know, do you want to go into sales, right, before I picked my career, I would have said, no way, I don't want to be a salesperson, right? Well, guess what my biggest revelation was after I got my first, you know, business card? I'm in sales. Oh no, right? Great, I'm a lawyer, but I got to have clients. And how am I going to get clients? Well, I'm going to have to go and market myself and market the firm and get those clients. And that was a terrible moment, right? But you figure it out, right? You learn from others in your organization, and you do some training, and lo and behold, you have clients, and you love what you do, right? I love what I do. And I think if you can help people find their passion, right? Find the practice area that makes them tick, that helps them get up in the morning, right? That makes them want to take those client calls and work on those particular cases, then as an organization, right, you've succeeded. So yeah, policies go a long way, but you know, culture goes farther, right? Culture goes farther than the words on the paper. And you know, again, this is my work family, right? I can't imagine being anywhere else. And you know, I hope others in our organization feel the same way.
And to Jay's comment about culture, I think that is the most important for me takeaway of the conversation, and something that it is critical to set the tone of your culture. If you're in a position of leadership, it starts with you. It starts with you of setting that tone and striving for a culture that supports family, supports women, supports men, supports everyone across the spectrum, inclusivity. But then if you're not in that position, if you're not fortunate to be in that area where you get to set the tone, you're still able to do a lot of work. You're still able to do it at your own individual level to help advance that tone of a positive culture. And if for some reason you're not someone that's able to even do that, you can vote with your feet. You can start a movement. You can leave. You can go to a better place that supports your priorities, supports your advancement, and supports you as a person. And ultimately, organizations are going to have to wake up when you're stuck there and you're looking at your statistics of where'd everybody go? Why is everybody leaving? That's going to have to be the wake up call. Maybe it's not a short-term thing. Maybe it's more long-term, but the bleeding and retention issue has been going on for a very, very long time. It's going to continue until organizations not only change their policies, but they change their actual day-to-day practices. And every one of us has the power and ability to make sure that we're making that change.
And the culture really is about communication too, because I think sometimes where firms get it wrong is where they're trying to implement policies and sort of assuming like this is what females will want. Or I won't ask Ashley because I know she has little ones at home, so we won't ask her to do this project here. And it's not coming from a bad place. It's not coming from a place of people wanting to stifle careers, but sometimes people are making those decisions for the females at their firm rather than having the conversation and saying, hey, I think you would be great for this leadership opportunity or for this assignment or for this client relationship. And if there are issues or challenges with the female taking that on, for them to raise and maybe figure out how to make that work or not hold it against them if this isn't the right time, but want to be considered in the future for that. But it does involve a lot of communication and kind of not making assumptions in an effort to help.
And when we think about advancement and client development is really important. And, there's this idea of the good old boys club and the people who aren't going out to play golf with them, or maybe don't get invited to happy hours. I know often that's women. It's a barrier faced by people of color. What special considerations as far as helping women and people of color get access to those clients, what special considerations can be made? What are their experiences like?
I mean, for me personally, I will say too, I mean, it's looking at our clients. There are a number of client where the relationship person isn't necessarily somebody who wants to be doing those things either. And so I think it's being more creative with how we're reaching out to clients and using your own personal skill set and interest to make real meaningful connections.
I think it's focusing on what you can do, right? And not focusing on the activities or the doors that maybe aren't necessarily open, right? You don't need those, at least in my experience. I didn't need those. I focused on what I could do and it's worked just fine.
I agree with that. I'm not a happy hour kind of gal, and my golfing, I'm like Happy Gilmore. I'm not a golfer, but at the same time though, client relations and client development is something I actually somewhat enjoy. So I'm not going to be participating necessarily in the golf tournament. I'm going to be reaching out on my own. I'm going to be doing my own thing and reaching out and having those valuable relationships and cultivating those relationships within the time frame that I'm able to do so, and within the activities that I enjoy and hopefully and that I think would be better tailored to the person that I'm developing that relationship with too.
The activity needs to be authentic, right? I mean, I can't go and pretend I don't know, I want to go to a bourbon sip and meet a client that I have something in common with. Like, that's not going to work, right? I mean, they're going to understand that I can barely swallow it and that's not the right activity, right? So, be authentic in the activities that you choose, because I find that, clients that I have things in common with end up coming back. Those are the real relationships that you build. So, put yourself out there in ways that you can meet people who can send referrals and that you can build relationships with clients who have opportunities to call you when they have legal work. But I don't need to try and break down a door that nobody wants to open for me, right? I don't think that client wants to hire me. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And I'm okay with that. That's okay.
So if we were to recap this conversation with like 4 bullet points of ideas that we just all talked about, what would they be? Not to quiz you guys.
Be your own advocate.
Culture
Invest in
is-
yourself.
Yeah,
I'll be quiet now.
I would say culture is, I think, paramount. And that comes, everyone has a role to play in setting the tone and creating the culture and making sure it's a good, positive one that supports everybody. We need a 4th. So practice,
I was
not
gonna say,
policies. You know?
Transparency is important too, because I think that, having formal things in place and being transparent and how you're assigning mentors, how you're assigning work, how you're assigning bonuses and pay scale. So again, people can make their own informed decisions, and it doesn't foster a culture of people feeling like there is more nefarious things going on than there are.
And be intentional, right? With all of those activities.
Great. Well, everybody who's on this call has been welcome to post things in the chat. Any questions that they have for our panelists. Just want to give you guys one more chance before we kick it over to Bill Nolan. All right.
You thought
Bill,
that
take it away.
to ask questions, right? Thanks, Katie, and thanks to the panel. I would mention on the CEO magazine landing page, it's real easy to get to all these programs, and all the past panels are there to link to, and it's just a really good series of programs. So encourage people to do that. So yeah, I get the last question. I'm just going to sort of drill like one more level on Katie's last question. So one, what for a legal employer, doesn't have to be a law firm, and of course I know they're all different, but what's one sort of, it's January 6th, it's not too late for New Year's resolutions. What's sort of one actionable, measurable, achievable thing for a legal employer to promote equity for women in 2022?
I think something would be to do a deep dive of whether your practices are matching your policies. What are the statistics? What's the breakdown of, you've got these policies in place, are people utilizing them? And then kind of tracking those numbers, doing a deep dive and reassessing, maybe this isn't working, and why is it not working? Why are they not utilizing these? And what is going, are we retaining the folks we want to do? So a deep dive into all of that.
Talk to the associates within your organization, right? Ask for input and feedback. That's invaluable. And then do something with the feedback that you're getting, all while remembering that we all need to be more flexible and understanding.
Good.
Yeah, and I would say being careful of glorifying some of the more toxic firm traits in terms of the being overly busy, the super full-time job, the things that lawyers often tend to wear as like badges of honor. But I think no matter what policies are in place, if you are holding yourself out as valuing those who have no work-life boundaries, who work 24/7, who are always in the office, then you are inherently devaluing those who are not doing those things.
All right, good list. Thank you. Well, with that, appreciate everybody joining. I'll turn it over to Ray Paprocki, publisher of CEO Magazine, to close us out.
All right, thanks, Bill. And again, thanks to Barnes and Thornburg and Noel, Frost, Brown, and Todd. Especially thankful to the panelists, Jane, Katrina, Ashley. Thank you for sharing your stories. And that's so important, I think, even for those who, see this issue as paramount, realizing that there's still more that can be done, whether it's beyond the legal profession, even. So really appreciate that you're participating in sharing those stories and your insights. And thanks to Bill for promoting the landing page about diverse leaders in law at columbusceo.com. Good place to pick up on past forums that we've done. And for this particular forum, you can go to the February print issue of Columbus CEO, where we'll do a edited and condensed version of this discussion as another takeaway, and it will also be posted at columbusceo.com. So with that, I just want to say take care and thank you, and hope everyone has a safe and healthy day. All right, take care.